Hi everyone, my name is Angel and I've been a registered dietitian since 2012. And I'm also a mom of 2 kids that keep me pretty busy, and I'm wife to a wonderful husband who's on the other side of this live stream helping me with all the technological challenges. So I'm so glad that you're here with me today. If you can relate to the thought of what am I cooking for dinner tonight, I'm glad you're here. Because one of the things that one of the struggles that I have as a mom is constantly thinking of how do I keep everyone happy? How do I make sure that everyone's getting the nutrition that they need without kind of stretching people's comfort zones so far? There might be a lot of grumbling. So I'm hoping that today I'll show you how to just make a quick meal, but quick little personal story as I kind of get ready here is there's a disclaimer up on the screen that just kind of reminds you that whatever nutrition information that I share or anything that I go through today, it's not a replacement for medical advice or professional advice from your own healthcare provider. Please don't treat it like that. It's more for general educational purposes, a little bit of entertainment. If you do have any health concerns, please consult your own healthcare provider, and I hope that you enjoy the time that we have here together. All right, for full details, you can always go to our website. So, quick story is, before my husband and I had kids, we actually loved going out to eat. And also, in particular, we would order mussels with lots of soupy broth that we would dip crusty French bread into, because that's just something that we deeply enjoy now. 2 kids in, and we find ourselves dining out less and less. And if we do dine out, it's usually a family-friendly establishment. And I honestly can't tell you the last time that we had mussels as 2 adults just enjoying each other's company. I don't know if you can relate to that, but tonight it just so happens that the kids are being looked after by the grandparents. Thank you if you're watching. And we just hope that tonight we can actually enjoy a little bit of an adult dinner, just the 2 of us, before my husband has to go and run off and do some volunteer work. All right, so what we're going to be making tonight is mussels, but I'm not the most creative person in terms of developing recipes from scratch, and I always like to give credit where it's due. So today I'm going to follow a recipe from servingdumplings.com, and the author of this recipe is Anna Chwestik. I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong. And this is a mussels and garlic miso broth recipe that's only supposed to take 30 minutes. So we'll see how that goes, okay? So I'll be following along with this recipe, and I'm hoping that along the way, I'll share with you some nutrition tidbits that will help you consider to see if this recipe is something that'll make its way into your repertoire as well, for either a date night or even with the whole family, because there's no reason why your kids can't enjoy this as well, unless they have allergies, of course. All right, so let's get going. First, we gotta grab all the ingredients. So I'm just gonna carry my phone with me to my fridge. And let's just see. I just so happened to see mussels at Costco, and we're quite spoiled where we are that we get to get these like Prince Edward Island mussels as well. I forgot that I didn't buy more onions, so we can't have onions, which is really unfortunate because that's a strong aromatic, but it's okay. Like, the life of a real working mom is that you just kind of use what you have and deal with making substitutions, because honestly that's real life. So I'm just gonna pull out what I need, which is mussels. I'm just going for the fridge stuff. So I actually keep my chopped garlic and minced garlic, ginger in the fridge, and I make substitutions along the way that I hope the author of this recipe won't be upset by, but I don't remember the last time I followed a recipe completely as is. Because in real life, I find it really hard to always have absolutely everything I need, and I may not actually think of what it is I want to cook until I actually until I'm actually maybe just on my way home or on my way ending work. So, as you can see, I'm pulling together the mussels, garlic, ginger, miso. And then instead of butter, we're gonna use some vegan soft tub margarine, sesame oil, vegetable oil, and I'm choosing to use canola. And then we also need a bit of mirin. So a lot of Asian-inspired flavors that we really enjoy. So, okay. Let's get going. Now, the first things first, like we gotta clean up these mussels. And I don't know about you, but can kind of be a fast or not so fast process depending on how you do it. I recently learned that I can actually wash mussels not just in cold water alone, but sorry, this is gonna be loud. I discovered that I can actually add a little bit of flour to the water, believe it or not. So I'm just gonna use my kitchen shears and open up the package. And interestingly, like lots of people don't realize that mussels are actually really high in protein. So here on the package, it says that in 15 pieces of mussels, there's actually 15 grams of protein. So one mussel for 1 gram of protein, that seems like a fantastic way to kind of making sure your meal has adequate amounts of protein, because most adults that like seafood or like mussels, they don't really have a problem with having 20 pieces of mussels, especially if it's a main meal and not like a side dish. And also here it says that it's got omega-3 fats, so 0.6 grams, and it's a very low in saturated fat, 0.5 grams in 15 pieces. And so if you're looking for sort of a Mediterranean diet-friendly protein option, I would definitely say that you don't have to look anywhere further. Now, mine came like vacuum packed, again, spoiled from Prince Edward Island, and I'm just going to dump it into this large bowl of water. And I think my dad, who was the first person to teach me how to cook, that I can remember anyways, will be glad that I am cleaning as I go. Love you, Dad. Okay, so once I fill the mussels with water, I'm just gonna add a few things. Well, not really a few things, but I'm just gonna wash my hands. And for those of you watching, it's important to wash your hands, and I know in daycare they do recommend that you sing happy birthday twice. I think that's best practice. So I'm sorry if ever I'm not singing happy birthday twice. Okay, so in this large bin of water, I'm actually going to add about 1/4 cup of flour. And again, I recently learned this. I didn't realize that this is something that I can do. But as the fresh mussels are breathing in the water and the flour, so you're just gonna use your hands and just kind of mix it all together. The flour water will actually get filtered in, and then it actually makes the mussels spit out any sand or grit faster. So it's just kind of like, as a mom, I find myself, anyways, I can only speak for myself, I find that I'm always looking for ways to kind of make things go a little bit faster. Now, you're supposed to leave the mussels in this floury water to kind of soak and filter for 20 minutes, up to an hour is what I've read. And so I guess one of the things we can do is just do a little bit of prep while we wait for that. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not so sure if I have the patience to wait for 20 minutes because I'm quite hungry. My family normally eats somewhere between 5:30 and 6:30, so I know the rest of this recipe is pretty fast, but I do want to make sure we eat on time. So I will let that soak, and you can see that there. But the next, this recipe was honestly just gonna get me to like rinse it in cold water and whatnot, but I'm gonna skip ahead because I think I actually really liked how clean the mussels were the last time I did this with another recipe, so I'm gonna do it like that. And so right now, what I'm going to do is, I don't have to chop the onion, but if I did have an onion, that's what I would be doing right now. In terms of garlic, onion, and tomato, I also don't have fresh tomato today, but the good news, and this might be something that's helpful for you guys too, I always have diced tomatoes on hand, and you know, lots of people might avoid canned goods because they're afraid of sodium levels, but it's definitely a pantry staple. That's a must in my opinion, because the tomatoes that get canned are usually at peak ripeness, peak of nutrient density, because they have to be ripe before they're harvested and then canned. And so oftentimes, in my opinion at least, it's even better than buying fresh tomatoes that may or may not get eaten on time. They just spend a lot of time just chilling out in the fridge until they're not even that fresh anymore. And so I very much enjoy kind of doing diced tomatoes. So because I know I just have to open up the can, I'm good there. And then instead of miso paste, I bought something that's called Miso Easy, which is kind of cute. And I guess like I'm using this because it's, again, squeezable. I don't even have to open a tub, and I just think that that's really convenient. Okay, so actually I have everything that I could have. I can prepare, so chicken broth wise, I don't know about you, but for me, one of my favorite products is this. Now, I don't get commissions for saying things like this. I'm just sharing with you what I enjoy to use. This is Better Than Bouillon. It's an organic chicken broth base that I like, and on top it will show you instructions for what amount to use. So it's 1 teaspoon will equal to 1 can, or 1 284 ml can. So I just kind of think of it as I'll use a teaspoon of this for every cup of chicken broth, or broth for any recipe that I need. So I could just constitute this first to kind of get it going. So in this recipe, I'm told that I need about 3/4 cups of the broth later on, so we'll mix that together. If someone is living with high blood pressure, I would definitely suggest that they go for something that's low in sodium. But then again, even if you use this full strength amount in 1 teaspoon, you're only getting 350 milligrams of sodium. And for our moms out there who are living with high cholesterol, know that generally speaking, you do want to keep your total sodium intake less than 2,000 milligrams a day. So, you know, and you're not going to drink all the broth by yourself. And obviously there's other sodium sources, but most of the time, if you are making food from home, you don't have to worry too much. Things can add up, and where possible, you might want to buy like low sodium versions to get yourself to stay within that budget. But at least in the Canadian diet, most of the sodium that we are more concerned about, like 85% or so of the total sodium intake for Canadians, is coming from highly processed foods or dining out. So if people are dining out a lot, or buying convenience foods or reheat foods, you know, those are the areas that we probably want to explore improving before worrying too much about, you know, home cooked recipes. So I'm just reconstituting the paste into boiled hot water. So in our home, we really like our Japanese hot water. Boiler, what do you call that? Electric water boiler thingy? So that I don't have to wait for a kettle. Again, it's just one of those things I feel like I could always use an additional 24 hours. All right, so I pretty much am ready with all these things. And the rest of it I'll just leave on the side. Okay. And I'll kind of keep that on the side. So I'm just gonna start washing the mussels. So I'll be honest, if you weren't with me, I probably would do this in the sink so that there's less splashy, but I put on an apron. It's right here so that you can kind of follow along with me in terms of how I'm gonna clean these mussels. Now, I know there's a million different ways and a lot of different brushes, but like this is from IKEA and I use it to like scrub my potatoes, my root vegetables, and in this case, I'll probably even use it to scrub the mussels. So it might be boring to watch me, but I hope that some of you will find it useful. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is just make sure that you're not eating a bunch of sand and grit or beards from the mussels when you do. When you do, kind of throw them into your steamer pot. And because these mussels are alive, I'm gonna make sure that my second container here also has cold water. So as you're watching this, like you're probably thinking, oh, maybe a brush would be more effective, but we use what we have is what I always tell the kids. So this beard, like it's just kind of this stringy piece that's coming out. You just kind of want to rip that. Now, I'll be honest, when I first, I think, got married and then we were on a budget because I was only a casual at that time. And for all sorts of reasons, we were watching our budget and I wanted to make fancy meals at home. So one of the things I did was try to make mussels, and I didn't know any better. Like I wasn't someone who went online to look for recipes at that particular time. And sorry, this mussel is just looking really funky for me. It's like broken. It doesn't smell off, but like it's so broken that I'm a little worried it's off. And so with seafood, honestly, like you just don't risk it. If when in doubt, throw it out. It's what I learned in Food Safe. And so I really encourage you to do the same. I'm just gonna toss that one. Your mussels should be nice and closed shut, just like this. Like it's clamped shut as if it's a child who's really not liking what you're serving and just sort of refuse to eat. So yeah, it should just kind of look like that, okay? So as I continue, sorry, I opened up a package of fresh mussels as a newlywed and I was preparing the recipe and I don't know what I was thinking, but I prepared the broth, I think just kind of like whatever I had, maybe not even following a recipe, and I just tossed the whole thing of mussels direct from the package, like the one I just showed you, into the pot. And so I didn't realize that that would totally change the flavor because of course it's like kind of seawatery in there and then like lots of sand and stuff. So like my husband, who to this day is not a picky person over what I cook, was just so loving and still ate it anyways. Okay, so I know it might be getting a little bit boring at this point watching me do this, and I might just, for sake of time today, not do like the best job cleaning up every single mussel because it's supposed to be a 30-minute recipe, and some people just honestly kind of bypass the whole flour thing anyways. So in terms of nutrients, I would say that protein is the biggest part of this. Omega-3s, because omega-3s in terms of the body, we already have them. And so it's not a matter of, oh, we're completely, oh, sorry, no, this one's okay. It's not like we're completely void of omega-3s. It's just that in our body we have a balance of 3, 6, and 9. And because of the North American diet that we're on, or even any countries out there that just follow more of a Western-based diet, you will find that the balance of omega-3, 6, and 9 is off, where there's more 6s and 9s. And so we're always trying to restore that balance so that we have more omega-3s through our diet, because the more that ratio is restored, the more our heart benefits, and the more the less inflammation our bodies will kind of go through. There's a lot of research now that shows how chronic inflammation either worsens or causes or plays into numerous conditions like diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, arthritic conditions like osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, like you name it. So I do feel like omega-3s need to be enjoyed. And truthfully, a lot of times, like you go see a dietitian at a cardiac center or wherever, and of course we're always talking about fatty fish, but what if you don't like fish? Well, maybe you don't mind shellfish, or maybe we need plant sources. So I guess that's something to kind of discuss. Being a animal source food, I'm just going to rinse these mussels, so bear with the sound a little bit. Give me a second. Sorry about that. I'm just going to toss out a couple more questionable ones. In terms of other sources of nutrition, because mussels are an animal, like a sea animal, source of iron, I'm just going to let them stay in the water until we're ready to go here. They also have what's called heme iron, and heme iron is best absorbed by the body in compared to like plant-based proteins, which are also wonderful. They don't need kind of more attention to detail to absorb. And so if I was having tofu this meal and tofu gave me non-heme iron, then I would just intentionally add some bell peppers or something else that's rich in vitamin C, so that the vitamin C helps my body and your body to absorb that non-heme iron better. So that's one way. But like lots of things that are rich in vitamin C, like it doesn't have to be oranges, it can easily be tomatoes as well. Or there's tons of lists these days online, so that's quite easy. All right, so I'm just gonna let the mussels kind of stay in this bowl a little bit and transfer to a clean bowl. Yep. Like I prefer to just keep mine on the counter here in the water, because I know I'm gonna be cooking it really, really shortly. So I'm just gonna make sure that it's okay. It's in really, really cold water because my hands are freezing. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna move over to the stovetop, and I might just be walking back and forth to grab the ingredients as we go, because mussels cook really fast. So let me get my big mussel pot out. And I'm quite spoiled with the gas stove, and this element seems to be really fast, so I just put it on medium, and let's just see, is that okay? You see that okay? Okay. All right. So let's get this going. Now, in Asian inspired, there's sesame oil and regular oil. And, you know, some of you at home might prefer to use a different kind of oil, but like my intentions are following the anti-inflammatory part of our conversation earlier. What we do know is that part of having a heart healthy diet is making sure that we don't overconsume saturated fat and we try to avoid trans fats. And so canola oil actually has the lowest amount of saturated fat compared against all other common cooking oils. And surprisingly, shockingly to some people, like coconut oil actually has the highest amount of saturated fat. And even though there is some research to show that the MCT component of coconut oil specifically may have a slightly different effect, the evidence there isn't strong enough for us to suggest that coconut oil should be like an everyday oil. And so I do recommend that people use have their everyday sort of cooking oil be something that's liquid at room temperature. Just like any sort of vegetable oil. So according to this recipe, we're going to put 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'll be honest, it's kind of challenging to pour from this big jug, but I didn't have time to kind of pour it into a smaller bottle. And that is life. It's messy. It doesn't always go the way that you want it to go, but it always sort of ends up being okay if we keep our mindset positive. Okay, so we're heating the vegetable oil and the sesame oil, and I don't have, which is onions. But we're not going to sweat that because honestly, there's some people who can't even have onions. Now, I'm not one of those people, but some people are sensitive to the FODMAPs in onions, and as much as they may love it, it's not something that they can enjoy regularly or enjoy in large quantities. So maybe this is my opportunity to kind of try it with that. So we're heating the sesame and the vegetable oil, and it already smells really, really great. And the next step would be to add the garlic, the onion, and the ginger, and we're going to cook that for 3 minutes until soft and fragrant. And then we're going to add the miso and the tomato. So while the oil is heating a little bit, I'm just going to get ready. Because my tomatoes are quite wet because they're coming out of a can. So I may need a slotted spoon to kind of help me. Okay. So if you are, the oil is starting to smoke actually. So when it's starting to smoke, we better get things going fast because I'm just going to take it off the heat for a second as I finish unscrewing this tomato can here, because when the oil starts to smoke, it's called a smoke point for a reason. That's when the oil starts to convert. And you don't want that oil to convert into and transform because that's not healthy for our bodies once it starts doing that. So we're just going to add the garlic. So 4 garlic cloves. I'm just going to guesstimate about how much of this President's Choice chopped garlic that is. And, you know, we like garlic, so if it's a little bit more garlicky, I don't think anyone's going to mind. And then 1 teaspoon of ginger. And again, like I realize fresh is best for aromatics, but truly it can be really challenging. So the downside to using jars is that there's more liquid that goes in, and of course water and oil doesn't mix well, and so there's a lot of spraying. So that's okay. Such is life. Okay. So because I don't want to have a burn, I'm just going to flip it that way and it will start to slow down a little bit. Okay. Now, in terms of, I'm just going to reduce my heat. Okay. You're going to lift your wheel leg with me. And for safety, I'm just going to close the lid so I can finish sliding a little bit. I'm going to stop the process. Because in real life, the most important thing is that nobody gets hurt. So, as I regather my approach here, I know that the garlic has probably burned a little bit. I could see that in the pan, but I'm also not somebody to mind a little bit of a kitchen mishap. Dinner must go on still. So how I'm going to do this is just take a quick peek at how much I need, because I'll be adding more liquids. I'm very cognizant that we need to do that, and the miso, and then the broth, and get that ready for the mussels. So because I turned up the heat, I know that while it's still hot inside, now it's just sizzling. And so I'm comfortable now on this no additional heat to kind of add tomatoes. Now it calls for 1 tomato, so I'm just going to kind of pretend we're doing like a large tomato. I'm gonna do that because my husband and I really like the soupy broth. I feel like we like the broth more than the mussels, even to a certain degree. So we're just gonna do that. And then I'm gonna come back over this way, grab my chicken broth, grab my, so in this case, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of white miso, and that's roughly a tablespoon. The one thing I like about cooking more than I like about baking, which I also love to bake, but is that it's more forgiving and you don't have to be quite so precise. So I'm feeling safe enough to turn the heat back on to a low simmer here. And we're just going to do this miso, and I'm going to add the chicken broth that we were constituted earlier. And like stuff like this really bothers me, so I'm just going to add a touch more water and get all that in. Okay. So we're creating just this flavorful broth liquid to steam the mussels in. And if you wanted to turn this into a vegetarian recipe, like a pesca vegetarian, of course, because there is seafood here, then you would just switch out the chicken broth and instead do vegetable broth instead. That's a pretty easy swap. Now, we're just allowing this to really warm up because these are cooked tomatoes, so I don't really need to wait for fresh tomatoes to cook. And so I'm just going to allow the flavors to kind of melt together. And it shouldn't get all splashy like it did earlier, because the ratio of water to oil is now inverted. So now I'm going to also add the fish sauce and the mirin. And so we need a tablespoon of each. So I have the mirin out, and I'm just going to grab my fish sauce. Okay. So as that warms up, for you guys, like, I don't know if you've bought fish sauce before, but like, it'll just say like fish sauce, and like, it doesn't really matter what brand you buy, but like, this is a brand at Superstore or Loblaws that you can find. And mirin is actually just a sweet kind of cooking item. Like you see, like we buy a really big bottle and we're down to like the little bit. Like it's just this really flavorful kind of liquid. Like it smells kind of like almost like sweet fermenting bread, in my opinion. And so we're just going to add a tablespoon of each. And in this case, I will measure, if only because I'm almost running out. Oh, you know what? I just have drops left, so I'm just gonna, again, real life this with you. Now, mirin does have, like at least this one, it does have 7 grams of sugar per tablespoon of use. But for those of you who may be looking for, like watching added sugar intake, like when you just add this amount into a whole recipe, it's not something that you need to be overly concerned about. It's more, if you were to watch for added sugars, we're more so worried about sort of other sources. Probably things like candy or chocolate or confectionery, pastries. And those things are sugar-sweetened beverages. Okay. Now, fish sauce, I don't know why, but they always design it so that the spout is just like this tiny thing and you always have to just shake. Okay, so it's going to just be added in. And we're just going to stir this. So this has become a really, really flavorful liquid, and even though I haven't tasted it yet, I know that some of the ingredients added already contain salt. So I might just kind of omit adding any usual salt and pepper that I might for seasoning. Okay, so right now I'm just stirring to combine the flavors, allowing it to melt. And I am gonna bring it to a boil, but it's simmering nicely. So right now I'm just gonna drain the mussels. And again, maybe they're not as perfectly clean as they could be if I was a bit more patient or had planned this ahead of time. But c'est la vie. Interesting thing, my dad, he came to Vancouver, British Columbia, when he was like, I think just over like 19, 20 years old. I don't know if there's any immigrant families out there that can relate to the story, but came, didn't really know English really well, didn't do so well in high school, and then came over and he just worked whatever jobs were available to him. That's one thing about my dad, is that he was never afraid of hard work. And he's always taught us to just don't be afraid to try new things. And so he got a job, a series of jobs that he eventually landed in this a dishwasher position in a hotel flight kitchen. And one of the chefs there speaks French. And so, of course, bilingual, because they're in Vancouver. But he actually taught my dad French because he would speak so much of it. And if he asked for certain things, my dad would actually begin to learn English and French, which was quite something because he spoke Cantonese almost exclusively in Hong Kong. And so why I think he say some of these short little bursts of French is because these are things he used to say. All right, so as you can see, the flavorful broth is now boiling, so I can actually just add the mussels now. But you know what? I really, really hate it when there's extra water that goes in. So I'm just gonna go one step further, and I'm actually just gonna like pour the mussels over like a sieve first, like this, over the sink, so that I don't get any extra kind of water. I rinsed it several times so there's no more like floury water, but yeah, that's just an extra step. So now we're over here, and we're just gonna move that over. I'm just gonna quickly wash my hands, and I'm just gonna stir to combine the flavors a little bit. And like I know that, again, the recipe, I know that I make so much, but I know that the recipe says to cook for 8 minutes, but I don't know if it's because the recipe has the larger mussels than what I have here. I just cooked the other half pack of this from Costco, and so I know that that batch, following a different recipe, was actually fully cooked in 3 minutes. So I'm just gonna leave this, and my little pot here is from like Um, this type of pot actually has a steamer valve, so like when it actually boils back up again, it's gonna whistle like a kettle, and then I'll know that it's in pressure, and I can actually do a little bit of pressure cooking by putting that down. So I love this little thing. I'm turning the heat up to medium high. And then I'm just gonna let it whistle, and we'll kind of take the next steps. So as I'm doing this, I'm just gonna put this down, and I'm gonna come back over this way and put some things away. Now, I actually don't know where it's gonna call for this butter. Oh, I see. So this recipe is interesting. The butter and the cream actually gets added after the mussels are done. Okay, turn off the heat, then add the cream and an unsalted butter. Cover and let sit for a minute until butter is melted. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. I've never done it like that before, but I suppose there's a first for everything. Okay, so bear with me as I put some things away. Because my dad worked and trained in the kitchen, he really instilled in us the importance of kind of cleaning as we go. Now, of course, in any home, there's always going to be leftovers. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of my life here. You know what? I don't want that to totally overcook, so I'm just going to do a 2-minute timer. Okay. So instead of cream, we're making a lot of substitutions today, but this is kind of my real life. I don't have cream, but what I do have is this Costco whipped cream that I bought to make my daughter's birthday cupcakes. And so what I discovered is the whipped cream I can just kind of replace practically like about the same as for whatever the recipe calls for. And again, this is not baking, this is cooking. So I am going to use it in place of, whipping cream or heavy cream. I don't know if you can hear the whistling, but it is whistling now. And I'm just going to take a quick peek, actually, instead of closing the valve. Okay. I don't know if you can see or I wish you could smell this. But can you see that all the mussels are opened up? So that means that they're cooked. If later on when we're enjoying these mussels, we notice any mussels that are still fully closed and they're not even a little bit open, we'll know that those mussels are dead, we shouldn't eat them, and we'll just throw them away. But like, look, it's beautiful. And so right now, like, it's done. But I'm just gonna turn off the heat and using a clean, or maybe what I'll do is I'll bring it over so you can see even better. Okay. Okay, so can you see that okay? I'm just gonna do a little bit of a taste test with a clean spoon before I even add other stuff. It's really delicious. Like, it's really salty in a good way, not overly salty. I can taste the Asian flavors. I can smell the sesame and all of that, and everything looks plump and delicious. Now, the recipe calls for a little bit of butter to like let it melt, but honestly, I'm gonna omit that because I'm already seeing like the glistening of sesame oil and whatnot. And as a family, we don't really like, there was already like tablespoons of canola oil in this, so I'm pretty comfortable. Now, this part I will add. Now, I realize I just said I don't want as much added fat, but I do find this adds to like the texture of the broth a little bit. So rather than even looking at how much the recipe is saying, I'm just gonna do like the tiniest little dollop. So just like that much. And because even though we're married, I still don't like double dipping into things I'm cooking. I'm just going to use a fresh ladle to kind of stir that in. And you can see kind of the color of the broth transforming. Now, again, like my audience is moms with young children, but most moms that I know appreciate it when baby finally gets to the stage where they're eating family table food, and that's around 1 year old. So this is one of those recipes that I would share with moms when baby is ready to have table food, so that you're not being a short order cook making things for different members of the family. Okay. So this is it. Now, if I had fresh parsley, I would probably add some more, add some in there to make it all like pretty and stuff. I don't. So if you're like me and you don't really mind using dried herbs as a substitution, I'm just gonna use dried parsley flakes, because what I discovered is, unlike some other dried herbs, dried parsley stays really vibrant green. And not only does it stay really vibrant green, but even after, like in the bag, but even after you sprinkle it into like a hot dish like this, I'll add a little more actually. Again, this is just me ad-libbing. Sorry, Anne, wherever you are, if you feel like I'm just totally weird. I do love the inspiration you gave today. You can see how the vibrant green stays vibrant. And it just creates this even more beautiful kind of restaurant-worthy appearance. And I'm even gonna add, because I have some leftover lemon, like this wasn't me chewing on it, this was just like from whatever time I needed a squeeze. I'm just gonna squeeze that in to brighten up the flavors. Oh. Okay. And so what I just did there, even though it seems so basic, is parsley actually has anti-inflammatory compounds that actually help with our overall gut health. And whether in dried or fresh form, that's a great way for us to add a little bit more nutrient density into our meal. And the squeeze of lemon, totally for flavor, but as a side, you also have this amazing vitamin C that kind of, again, will help boost the kind of anti-inflammatory kind of positive effect of eating real food. Okay, so I'm just gonna close that. That's our meal. Now, you can serve this with whatever you wish. Just enjoy it as is. I didn't think that I was gonna make mussels tonight, or else I probably would have bought some crusty French bread to enjoy this with, maybe sourdough, which is lower in glycemic index. But we're probably just gonna toss up a quick side salad to enjoy with this, or have mussels as is and sort of go with the flow. But I also have, how are we for time? Let's see. Yeah, it's 6:02, it's dinner time. I think I'm just gonna show you a really quick way to add some fiber into this recipe that you might not have expected. And let me show you how. Okay, sorry, clean kitchen. Okay, and I'll have to wipe off all that splattering later. Okay. Wash, wash, wash. Okay. So this is a really quick way to add some fiber into a meal where, oh boy, like I just planned for the protein, I don't know what to do. When I cook grains, I actually almost always cook like I'm serving a mini army. So this is, the last time I cooked quinoa, I just cooked like this entire casserole's worth. So now in a pinch, grains sometimes take a lot of planning and to cook. So I actually have leftover quinoa, and I'm just gonna warm it up a little bit. And this quinoa is a whole grain. It's naturally gluten-free for people who are maybe gluten sensitive or intolerant. And by batch cooking this, you can quickly add a lot of fiber to your meal. And when it comes to balancing out your meal, one way to do it is you can make what we call a balanced plate. So people living with diabetes, perhaps people who are living with pre-diabetes or seen dietitians before may know sort of this method, but I'll just quickly do it with you so that you kind of imagine how you might apply this. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit. Okay, so the balanced plate method essentially just talks about having half your plate. So this is just baby spinach. It could be spring mix, it could be whatever bag salad that you have, because again, we're trying to make this realistic and save some time. So the balanced plate method is making sure that half your meal is vegetables and fruit. Although if you are living with pre-diabetes or diabetes, you want to keep that amount of fruit to just 1 cup or 1 piece, like if it's an apple or something like that. That's about the size of like a fist or a tennis ball. That would be roughly 1 cup. And so once you have half a plate of veggies, and we can of course make this a more fancy salad by adding more things. But just for sake of showing you what this will look like more quickly, like this is my leftover quinoa that I just reheated in the microwave. This can go onto a quarter of the plate. And so this can be any whole grain. It doesn't have to be quinoa, but this could have been, again, something like the sourdough bread. And so the cup, it's like sometimes I get the question of, well, I get the proportions visually, but like how high are we talking? Like you know, the amount of portions you say, we don't have to get too into the nitty gritty, but people with specific recommendations, like those who are maybe taking insulin, like moms or anyone who needs to be more watchful, like you can speak with your registered dietitian or your doctor about parameters. But the general premise of the balanced plate is just so that it's a quarter whole grain, half vegetables and fruit, and then your protein, in this case for us mussels, would go in that remaining quarter section. Now, shellfish obviously has a shell and it's taking up a lot of space, like you see. Like, we're not really gonna count those empty shells, but imagine that this was a piece of fish, or chicken, or tofu, or lentils, like that's where that would go. And this is how you would create sort of a balanced plate at home. I do like to encourage people to have at least 2 colors on their meal plate. And so in this case, our 2 colors are, even if I don't add anything else, which I probably will later, the tomatoes, which are rich in lutein, great for our eyes, and then the bright green, which is a great source of folate and really good for our nervous system and our health. So we can probably enjoy the salad, and maybe I'll throw a little bit of dressing onto that, but we'll see. But yeah, that's it. So I hope that if you're enjoying a family meal or a date night meal tonight, a little bit fancier, that you'll really enjoy this super nutrient dense meal that's balanced, has protein, has fiber, has vitamins and minerals. And yeah, I just hope that you enjoyed spending our time together. And I encourage you to come back to our next live stream, and I hope that if you enjoyed this recipe, even though it's super modified, if you enjoyed, and if you have any feedback for us, that you just leave a comment in the chat there. All right, so life is busy. I'm flattered you spend any bit of time with me, and I wish you the best of health and wellness.